Three, two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore. I am your host for tonight, and we're kind of doing a month of birthdays and revisiting. And we ended up going back to the voting boards and films that we've already discussed but would like to revisit. And Dark Crystal ended up winning that vote, and that is the film that we've watched for tonight. It is a 1982 film that was directed by Jim Henson, and it was produced by Jerry Kurtz with a screenplay that was written by David Odell, who originally worked with Henson as a staff writer on The Muppet Show. The film's score was composed by Trevor Jones. And the film stars Stephen Garlick, Lisa Maxwell, Billy Whitelaw, Percy Edwards, among others. The film was also directed by Frank Oz, by the way. So it's kind of a twofer for the direction. But that being said, this particular film was produced by the Jim Henson Company and distributed by Universal Pictures. And it revolves around Jen and Kira, two gelflings on a quest to restore balance to the world of Thra and overthrow the evil ruling Skaxis by restoring a powerful broken crystal. So let's go into first impressions. And well, let's start with you, Kroll. Was this a first time watch for you?
No, it wasn't. I saw it when it probably exactly when it came out. I don't remember exactly when, but yeah, I was definitely a child when I saw the movie, and I absolutely loved it. Side note, I loved the Muppets too when I was a kid, so those were up my alley, and of course Yoda, who Frank Oz did. So yeah, it was a nostalgia watch. Bring me back to my childhood. Yeah, it was just really fun watching it again. Fun watching the characters and what happened. Just great story.
Okay, is that it for your first impression then?
Yeah.
Okay. Heading over to you, Jake. Was this a first time watch for you?
You know, it wasn't. I was on the last show. Well, if I remember correctly, and I think I got into this before, but I know this was one that Brandon showed me at some point, and I think it was at the start of what we called the movie game, where we were showing each other stuff that the other hadn't seen. Unfortunately, haven't been able to do that for some time, but I'm pretty sure this was the first one he brought up, and I could not swear to it, and I still can't swear to it, that was my first time watching it, but it was probably my first time watching it through. I don't think I saw it again in the meantime until we covered this previously, and I watched it for that. And since then, I was given a copy, and I was very much intending to watch it. And then when it came up again, I'm kind of furious that I didn't get to watch that copy. I had to watch it online again. But maybe that'll mean a fourth viewing is in the offing soon. But so I know I've seen it 3 times at least. It's been a couple of years since the last one. I feel like it is one that grows on me, and I feel like that seems like a likely story with this one. Y'all can tell me if you agree or not, but it seems like something that would grow on you with repeat viewings. I definitely feel like I get a little more out of it this time than I did last time. I think last time, if I remember, I think Brandon showed it to me in ultra high def, so I was distracted by what that revealed about the production. So this time I didn't have that distraction, but it's a fun enough movie. It's very interesting and very little different from what I usually think of when I think of the Jim Henson company, but it's a little darker. But yeah, it's good times.
Alrighty. Is that it for you then?
Yeah, that works.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Forrest. Was this the first time watch? Yeah.
No, it was not. First time I saw this movie was I was aware of this movie. I think I first became aware of this movie in high school because I remember South Park parody. Actually, maybe it was in college. Well, actually, I think I remember knowing about it in high school, but I didn't see it until I was in college. I remember South Park making references to it in the past. But yeah, I didn't see. Yeah, it's one of those. This is one of those kids movies that I didn't see until one of those family movies that I didn't see until I was older. But I really enjoyed it. I think the puppet work was excellent. The puppet work, the production design, the music, it's definitely a much more very different from what a very different showed a more mature side to Jim Henson than what we've seen from what I remember seeing from the Muppets growing up. And I wish that he had. And between this movie and Labyrinth, I wish that Jim Henson had done more movies like this and like Labyrinth, like beyond the confines. Basically doing. I would love to have seen him do more movies beyond the confines of beyond the Muppets. Doing maybe more mature, maybe more ambitious movies. Not that the Muppets aren't ambitious, but like I guess. Covering, I guess, thematic, something that's like that's not the Muppets, like but like like thematically not or like something different, something just I guess not just I would say not the Muppets, but just something different from him. But yeah, it's I think it was very well done. The characters, the puppet work, production design, it's very unique among I find it very unique both among fantasy movies in general, and fantasy movies of the 80s.
Okay. Is that it then, Maria?
For now.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. Was this the first time watch for you?
Oh no, I saw it. I didn't see it till I was like in my like 2021 or so, so it's not like right when it came out or nothing, but I saw it quite a long time ago, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked the whole fantasy concept and all the different characters. I really liked the little doggy. What was it? Biscuit? Whatever his name was.
Fizzgig.
So
my little icon here.
I want one of them. So, but yeah.
Run away, Dave.
No, I found it really enjoyable, and it's like, the first time you watch it, it takes a little bit, I think, for you to really realize, these two are actually one. The Mystics and the Skaxis. You don't get it like right away. You kind of, as the movie evolves, you kind of see it, which kind of is cool because that helps with the whole plot. So. But yeah, I found it every time I watch it, I enjoy watching it. So, in fact, it was just on like about a week ago when I watched it. Then all of a sudden, Dave says, well, guess what? I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm watching it again. So,
Alrighty. Is that pretty much it for you then?
yeah.
Alrighty. And over to you, Brandon. Was this the first time watch for you?
No, nowhere near. I first saw this as a child. I couldn't tell you where, but I did see it. And when we taped it, of course, I watched that VHS tape over and over again into my teenage years and into adulthood, where I upgraded to DVD, then eventually 4K. I'm guessing Blu-ray first because I think that the 4K came out after the movie game ended. But I really did like this as a kid. The Skaxis were always scary to me as a child. But I really did enjoy the adventure, the fantasy, just all the above. And I think the first time I saw this in 4K, it was a little bit off-putting because a lot more was shown than probably would have ruined the magic, I guess you could say. But after watching it a second time, the clarity of the music and visuals did quite a job there. So I was very happy to watch it again. It's a great film. It is too bad that this one and Labyrinth were kind of flops because Jim Henson and Frank Oz put a lot of work into both of those films. And which is, again, it's very sad because more of these would have been good. I agree with Forrest on that.
Okay, is that pretty much it for you then?
All good.
Alrighty. And for myself, I did not see this when I was a child. I saw Labyrinth first. And I'd always heard about the Dark Crystal, and then I didn't see it until a friend of mine that ended up being my roommate at the time really loved this movie, and I saw it for the first time, I would have to say in my 20s. And I thought it was weird. It was definitely darker than Labyrinth, and you can definitely recognize some voices from Labyrinth, and vice versa. But I thought the story was unique, and I thought the character design was really well done. I mean, at this time, I think that Jim Henson was like the player on the board for like puppetry and animatronics, working with puppetry. You know, I mean, there was no stop motion animation involved. You know, in these films. I mean, there was artwork for the background and stuff like that. So the film's coloring design is very unique as well. So, but what always surprises me when I look up like anything on this film is that, you know, this film had very mixed reviews and often towards the negative when this first came out. So the fact that it is a classic to many of us, and the fact that we all think it's kind of a masterpiece, you know, at the time, it was another one of those that just wasn't well liked by the media at the time. So, but other than that, that's pretty much my first impressions, because that's where I'm coming from. But we get this story of like thousands of, I guess, years ago in the world of Thra, and you've got at the heart of it this purple crystal that they call the dark crystal, and at one point of this universe of Thra, you've got the Skaxis, which are supposedly these evil creatures that all of a sudden some of them start groaning these like weird sounds and stuff like that. So that's how you're like introduced to like these creatures called the Skaxis, And on the other side of the whole spectrum is these creatures that are a little bit larger in scale, and we know them as the Mystics, but their race is actually called the Urus. And I guess in the very beginning, we see that there is this dying Skaxi, and all these creatures called the Skaxis are like surrounded in this like royalty looking Skaxi, the leader, I guess. And I guess they're waiting for its death. And while this happens, I mean, you can see that the Skaxi comes up for one last dying breath, saying, "I am still in charge of my, my facility. I
am the emperor."
Yes, I am still the emperor. And that's when you get two of the Skaxis vying for the throne, I guess. And they do a very interesting trial by stone. So what do y'all think about this, like, very beginning, how we get to see this world and these creatures? What do we think about the Skaxis?
That whole thing with where the Emperor does that thing where he comes back just enough that, first off, that's almost it's usually frightening for many kids, I think, because it was for me when it does that, and then disturbing when you see him slowly crumble into nothing with that effect, which I thought was good. And then, of course, also pushing that over to his other half, who was dying over with the Mystics and Jen. I just think that was a really neat comparison, and it was great about nailing home the idea that they're kind of two halves of the same whole.
Yeah, the narration closely mirrors for like each intro. The narration's very closely mirrored of there are 10 left and their leader is dying, and it's like and they even had, what was it, today, something like "today will bring no comfort," I think is a phrase that's repeated both times.
Their ritual will bring them no comfort, and
yeah.
I don't know what they said with the Skaxis, but
right.
Something like that.
Yeah, but
it's
at
kind
this
of
point in time, we don't know that they're connected at any given point in time.
No, but that's one of the early hints.
Yeah, it's one of the early hints, but only if you can like catch on, like right there and then and there. But this trial by stone is very unique, I think, because it's puppetry at its best with swords play, I think. I don't think before this that we ever got such a, shall I say, sword and sandal moment with puppetry, where you actually see the swords flash. And then I guess there's this like big stone that they're supposed to like hit until it like breaks apart.
See, I find that kind of interesting because you get this elaborate setup comes up with these really wicked looking blades laying against this stone. And yes, they did say trial by stone, but then you see the swords and you're like, oh, it's going to be a sword fight. And then they start striking the stone and it's like, oh, so that's what they're doing. Oh, it kind of sets your expectations up for something a little different.
Oh.
And I can't help but thinking that's a good way to dull those blades really fast.
I don't know why, but every time I see like the two of them that fight, every time I see the one, I think Brian Blessed and his version of the King and Blackadder. But I also, I mean, I don't know what it is about the Skaxis. A lot of the designs, they're so interesting to look at, but so creepy at the same time. Each one, you can see different remnants and how they look based on aspects of their personality. Though, oddly enough, my favorite one was always Chamberlain, even though everybody else probably dislikes that one. There was just something that I thought was interesting about that buzzard head and the weird whimper that he had.
He did look cool. I think he looked the coolest too.
Yep. And it's a good thing you mentioned that Skeksis name or whatnot, or what he's necessarily called. They refer to him as Chamberlain. But Chamberlain ends up not winning this fight of strength, which is basically what it was, to figure out the strongest, so that the strongest could lead. You know. So Chamberlain is then stripped of title and all its worldly belongings, and then banished from their so-called kingdom. But the story is not done with Chamberlain yet. So, though he is banished, he still kind of keeps to the shadows and ultimately tries to bring himself into the good graces of the main characters that we eventually meet. Which, why don't we begin to mention the first of these main characters? Because on the other side of the spectrum, where the Skaxis are almost, I would have to say, polar opposites. Where the mystics dwell. The Urus are led by a leader by the name of Urso, I believe. But I guess there has been a Gelfling amongst their number that has grown up in the wisdom of the mystics, and he calls Urso his master, and he is there while his master is in fact dying, and he tells him that he wishes he could like explain all to him, but he is able to tell him that to find a shard of the dark crystal, or at least I think that's what he was basically told, and find this witch, I guess, that I forget her name for a moment. Do any of you?
Agra, I think is the name.
Yeah.
Agra is her name, and but yeah, his master then deceases, and he begins his journey. And what do we think about our young Gelfling here as a character when we first meet him? We find that his name is called Jen.
I think he is very wants to be obedient to the master and wants to please him because he knows that he's being sent on this quest, and he's part of a prophecy. But he's scared to go out into the world to do this, and he as he leaves, he's talking to himself, because he doesn't he's so unsure about everything. You know, I can see why he's scared to go out in the world and everything. And now he's saddled with being part of this prophecy, and he has to find this Ogra, and he doesn't know what he's supposed to do when he finds her and when he finds the crystal. So he's got a lot of stuff on his, plate.
Well, and while he is going on this journey, that is when we start to see a little bit of like the surroundings around like his journey. There are a lot of creatures that look like, okay, if you were to go under the sea, and suddenly the sea like drained itself of water, you'd be able to see land enemy, and that's what some of these creatures kind of remind me of. Like while he's like journeying, some of them seem like something of that nature, where they're like sea enemy, just kind of disappearing into like these holes in the ground. Did y'all notice those?
Oh yeah.
And ultimately, he finds his way to where Agra is, and he gets stuck in these like I guess for all intents and purposes, I would have to say vine creatures, because he's stuck there hanging, and and Agra comes out, but we don't know it's Agra at the moment, and she's all like, "Well, why are you here?" And why are you looking for Agra?
I love that introduction, because he's hanging there, and you just see this hand come up with this eyeball staring at him. It's just it's great. Agra is probably one of my favorite characters in this, maybe my favorite character, just because she kind of takes the traditional old like wise person trope and then adds a little bit of sass to it.
Oh yeah. And ultimately, after I guess I would call it a little bit of teasing, um, she has these creatures let him go after she's assured that he is, there to see her. And he basically tells her that he's looking for a shard of the crystal, but he doesn't exactly know why. And at this point in time, he actually does not know about any prophecy, but I do think that Agra alludes to a prophecy, but in riddles. She's kind of a mysterious character, where she only says as much as she thinks that he needs to know. But he finds himself in like an observatory type cavernous type place where you got these spinning orbs, and I thought this whole like astronomical device was kind of cool looking. The way it twisted, and like it seemed like it could have actually told of this, well, as she refers to it, she calls it the Great Conjunction. Ask about the Great Conjunction. What do y'all think about this whole scene here?
That's an amazing thing, that constellation, basically that map that tells her about all the star locations and such. That is an amazing set piece. You also get to see that Jen is an interesting character, because he almost feels useless in some ways, other than being just the basic bare bones protagonist. But he does have a couple of things. I always look at it as like, if you were to speak it in D&D terms, a bard and a ranger team up together to fight evil, because that's really where Jen's strength is, in lore and in his music, because you see him determine the crystal by the music, and you can tell that the mystics help teach him how to play.
Yeah, he had a flashback of the Mystics playing that a certain melody to whatever musical flute, I think.
I do wish that I did. There is a part of me that wishes I could have seen more of what Jen could do as a character. You really only see it in a few parts. Most of them are party, but there are a couple of them that show that.
Well, yeah,
as far as
they don't really
he's
flesh
got some
Jen's magical abilities out as much as they do.
Well, Kira is like, oh well, she's definitely useful. We just need her.
She's more than useful. I mean, she even has wings. But yeah,
we don't find that out yet.
No, we don't. But yeah, so
I'll have to agree that whole setting is awesome, with all the how she set that up with all the like a universe type thing. It was the way it was moving around and all the different things. I thought that just looked really neat.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
But I guess it's at this point that it kind of flips back to where the Skaxis are, and I believe it's at this point that they are aware that the crystal is illuminating to them that the prophecy that they know about is actually going to be coming into play and involves a Gelfling. And they thought that all of them were dead. And you see a little bit of what they do to Gelflings by the slaves that they in fact keep in their kingdom. And those are interesting creatures too, because I actually think those things are darker than to me. I think those things are darker than the Skaxis themselves.
That whole slave scene and the creation scene is extremely creepy. But there's a reason why you only see the podlings there. They
Indeed.
They were like, no, we ain't gonna leave any of these even alive. We'll drain them of their essence and we kill them, because we can't take chances on one of these coming back and and taking us out.
Yep. So, meanwhile, while I've mentioned the dark crystal is illuminating to them some of the prophecy being revealed to them, this puts into action the leader getting slightly afraid of this whole possibility. So he sends out the crystal bats to search for this Gelfling. And meanwhile, also sending out these crab-looking, spider-looking animatronic thingamajigs. I'm not even sure what to call them. They just look like big giant bugs to me. But they're more like beetles. What do y'all think about these creatures? Because it seems like they send these things to go destroy towns and bring them back in these like huge baskets.
Those are pretty cool little creatures. They're appropriately crazy looking. I say beetles, but there's like definitely a crustacean vibe there too.
Kind of a combination.
Kind of
but they I got scared as a kid by those creatures because the how nasty they were, and the clicking and clacking sounds that they were making. It just scared the crap out of me, especially when we see a later scene where Jen falls into a dark room and he's surrounded by the glowing eyes.
So I actually think that he sent these things first, not the crystal bats yet.
Yeah,
Because
they send those when they capture Agra.
Yeah. But the Skaxis are definitely antagonized by Chamberlain later for them to send out the crystal bats. But these crustacean-looking creatures end up finding their way to the observatory and destroying it. Well, Jen actually makes an escape, and he makes his way into a forest, and then he steps into a swamp, and that's when he kind of runs into Fizzgig, which is this creature with a mouth of teeth that opens wide and gets annoyed at him. And in steps his opposite, Kira, who is also a Gelfling, and I guess it's at this moment where they start to spirit dream, if I remember correctly.
You could say that.
Yes.
Where I guess they share memories of their childhood and their growing up, and I guess it's another one of their powers that they can do when they're around, like, creatures of their own.
Right.
When a Gelfling is near another Gelfling, I guess they have the ability to share each other's memories.
Did anybody actually watch the Netflix series? It's only one season. It's sad that it didn't go on. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but it was.
I haven't gotten around to it
pretty cool.
myself.
Wow.
I think we watched about 4 episodes of it and just never got around to watching the rest of it. Because we ended up checking out a little bit of it, but it's been a while, so I'm not sure I remember it well enough. But after they share each other's memories, that's when Jen starts to sink, and that's when we see a second magical thing that Kira can do. I guess she uses music of her own, or shall I say, singing or talking. And I guess he's evidently standing on top of a creature as he rises from the swamp. And
well, as Brandon said, to put it in gaming terms, I guess this would probably qualify as animal empathy. I think that she has, yes, but definitely there was a musical component to it.
Yeah. And I guess ultimately she ends up taking him to a group of people that she's been like associated with.
They raised her.
Podlings.
They raised her. They were her family.
So I guess they're safe for a moment, but then those crustacean beetles end up showing up there and capturing most of their people. And I guess they decide to end up journeying together. And she ends up calling these like long giraffe looking like creatures that evidently they can ride. And
Well,
Lance
well,
Striders.
well, before that, the Skaxis that was banned tries to act like he's on their side and that he was protecting them.
that's right.
Right.
And
Chamberlain. He ends up trying to get into their good graces, and he tries to, especially to Jen, that he must come back and promise peace to the Skaxis, and they will understand, or something like that.
well, yeah, and then they get away from him, and after they rest, they wake up and they go in these ruins, and he sees the actual prophecy. Jen does,
Right.
because he can read it, and while he's reading it and they're seeing it, that's Chamberlain shows up again, and they get away from him, and that's when they find those other creatures.
Yep. And those creatures end up taking them straight to the kingdom of the Skaxis, which right outside the kingdom, they find the crustacean beetles and people that they've taken, and that's when Kira runs or gallops to attack. And at first she's like kicking their ass, but she ends up like falling from the thing, and Jen comes to her rescue, and they and I guess at that moment the creatures are kind of battling creatures.
Interesting behind the scenes for the rabbit things. I mean, they are people who are using stilts like on their legs and arms.
Mhm.
And according to what I had in some of the behind the scenes, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I heard one of them got really badly injured doing that because it's just so difficult and dangerous doing that particular. Apparently, that costume was one of the most dangerous costumes that they had on there because of how balanced they had to be and the lack of sight and all of that.
Right.
I did forget to mention this one moment, and I think it's one of the better scenes of Jen and Kira. They're actually in this boat, and they're combining their musical talents together. And I actually thought that moment was kind of serene. And that's when you see the crystal bat like come through, and she like shoots it down. That's when they realize that they're kind of being followed. And that was like a little bit before like they got to this kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up backing up into this ravine, where you can see the Chamberlain is actually watching them from afar too, where they find a like a carving in the wall in this
They
ravine.
found the back entrance.
Yeah, the back entrance to the kingdom, I guess, which I guess is interesting because it takes them through kind of like the dungeon area where
Yeah.
you see that Agra is in a room, and I guess it is kind of unfortunate, but ultimately, I believe it's Chamberlain who actually somehow or other gets Kira like locked into this machine that starts taking her essence.
Well, he captures her. He captures her and presents her to the others to get back into their good graces.
Yeah.
And during the conversation, you actually see Jen injure Chamberlain's hand, which they show just again to give you that idea of their connection. One of the one of the mystics with their hand being injured right before Chamberlain was like, "Oh, okay, screw this. I only need one of you," and then
Yeah.
basically
And that,
knocks him down.
yeah. I also wanted to mention, because I don't think it was mentioned, that during this time, the mystics are, it's almost like migrating toward
Yeah.
the castle, which this is one thing that I find kind of strange, and I still find it strange, and I don't know if maybe I'll pick something up with repeat viewings or whatever, but they must have slasher movie walk, because they're able to just amble along at their leisurely pace and cover the same amount of ground that these Gelflings did with the Landstriders almost as fast.
So I don't think it's I think it's a different thing because Jen, keep in mind, Jen took a lot of detours out of the way because he was trying to find the crystal, and he didn't start going to the castle until like way after Aughra's lab. And you can see that the Gartham got her to the castle way sooner than they got there. So my guess is because they took a beeline for the castle, they were able to make it.
Right, but they don't really. I could be remembering this wrong, but I don't think they left for their thing until he had already met with Aughra, right?
I'm not sure of the timing on that one.
I think it was after
they left
that.
after he left, because they gave
And maybe they left sooner. I don't know.
they were in that circle and they gave their blessing to him as he was leaving, and I thought it was after that is when they left.
You might be right. You might. I don't remember the timeline quite well enough to get that,
but yeah, they seem to get there at the castle that the Skaxis like live in, like almost around the time that like the final battle is going down, you know.
Right.
But ultimately,
well, and actually, we do see one of them disappear along the trail, which was one of your other really big clues. Brandon mentioned the one getting his hand injured, and you see the other one. But then in the in the battle in the dungeon, the whatever his official title was, I can't remember. It wasn't the Chamberlain. It was the guy that was his gig. That was what he did. I can't remember his official title, but he got thrown into the
fires, whatever.
Yeah, the other guy vanished. Yeah, which was kind of cool.
Before we get a full look at what they do to the essence of these creatures, that is depressing. You see the glow go out of their eyes, and they just become this dull look, and that's the part that's sad in here, because if I was younger, I might not have been able to deal with that. Brandon, how are you dealing with that part in this movie?
Hey, I was a little kid when I saw it too.
Well, how were you at the time?
I was okay. Like I said, I was used to watching a lot of horror movies, so it wasn't that terrifying. I mean, it was sad, but it was just par for the course, I guess.
I was going to say, with what you had to say about Mr. Rogers earlier, I don't think you were affected at all.
Fuck Mr. Rogers. Now, I actually enjoyed the puppet show. The Kingdom, that part I loved, but Mr. Rogers himself couldn't stand or anything else. So,
yeah, there ain't no account for it, right? And I meant to mention before, I'm sure I mentioned on the last one, anyone who hasn't seen Tagami Bachi ought to check it out, but Fizzgig reminds me so much of steak. They must be the same species.
I always considered that Fizzgig was in the realm of being related to the Langoliers. But anyways, that being said, so all and there was a moment where Jen actually came to the realization with Kira, like involved the fact of what he had to do with the shard of the dark crystal. He finally figured out that he had to heal the crystal by putting the shard back where it came from, and that became something of an obstacle course for him because then he had the rest of the Skaxis to worry about, and the crustacean beetles. So, what do y'all think about this final battle before he actually is able to like put the shard back in?
There's a lot that goes on in those final bits. Yeah. I mean, saving her her saving herself from becoming a slave by freeing the animals, and then of course the whole thing with him battling the room filled with those creatures, and just in general them having the interaction with her sacrificing herself to make sure that he gets the crystal. So there's a lot on there, definitely.
It's a weird movie.
So one of the things that happens during this so-called Great Conjunction is, I guess there are 3 suns that begin to align. And the Skaxis gather for the ritual that will grant them their immortality. You know? And I guess the creatures that are the crustacean beetles, they're called Gartham.
I like the window that they use for the conjunction. You can see the triangle, and each of the suns is coming from a different point.
And Jen leaps onto the crystal, but then he drops the shard. And Kira then takes it after Fizzgig is thrown down by the shaft by Skek. I guess that's what his name was.
Yeah, that part made me unhappy, although, fortunately Agra finds him later. But still, that part made me unhappy.
But she is saved by Agra shortly after. And Kira throws the shard back to Jen and is fatally stabbed by the ritual master.
That was upsetting.
His name is called Shekzok. Heartbroken, Jen plunges the shard into the dark crystal, fulfilling the prophecy. The Gartham disintegrate and the podling slaves regain their essence while the dark stone covering the castle crumbles away to reveal a crystalline structure. The Uru arrive and use the crystal to merge themselves and the Skaxis into the beings they once were, the angelic Urskex. The Urskex leader explains to Jen then they had mistakenly shattered the crystal thousands of years ago, splitting them into 2 races and decimating Thra. And that Jen's courage and Kira's sacrifice have restored them. Your sex then revive Kira in gratitude and then ascend to a higher level of existence, leaving the crystal of truth to Jen and Kira on the now rejuvenated Thra. So, any comments on that final, happening?
They're creepier than the freaking Skaxis if you look at their faces and such.
Yeah, they're weird.
They are a little. Trying to think what they reminded me of, but I can't place it.
yeah, you can't exactly look at them like John Coffey does, Fred Astaire, and say, "Oh, these be angels, boss. These be angels."
No, you wouldn't quite. No.
But I think at this point in time, we're at the production standpoint of the film. What do y'all think about the production?
This has got to be
Excellent. Very, really well done. Like the sets, the matte painting. I think matte paintings.
Right.
The music is very very epic and dark, of course, at times. And the creature designs are really well done too. Like very, especially the Skex. I especially love the designs for the Skaxis. Like these they're like these anthropomorphic vultures.
Well, they're like kind of a combination of vultures and rats almost.
Yeah.
It's like really interesting.
Yeah, you could almost see a little bit of the witches involved with those sketches, just a little bit. The original witches.
Well, the Jim Henson studio did do that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's some of his finest work. It's definitely some of his finest and most underappreciated work.
Oh, the production on this is probably the best I've seen out of Jim Henson's studio. Maybe not the best, but probably close to it.
Definitely up there, along with Labyrinth.
I would definitely say the character design is very original and very creative and very well done. The puppetry was excellent, and the puppets themselves were excellent. The design of the castle, all that was really cool design. One thing I read in the trivia was that this was originally to be called Dark Chrysalis, and one of the artists misunderstood Jim Henson and drew the design for the crystal, and he didn't know what it was at first, and then he was like, "Oh, well, this is great. Let's use it. Let's." So it almost, is a happy accident if it were. But and I agree with Forrest. The music in this was quite excellent. Very, very well done. As I said when we did this last time, I had watched it on high def. I know Brandon had the 4K or whatever it was on your TV, and you definitely saw some of the scenes. You saw some It kind of took away from the magic, if you will, of the movie, but it kind of helped reveal some of the artistry, if you will. So that kind of was like a double-edged sword. Rewatching it on a smaller computer screen kind of melted away some of those nuts and bolts, if you will. And so it was easier to just kind of watch it. And yeah, it looks great, I think, overall.
I think this is a film that when people put down practical effects and say practical effects are inferior to CG or things like this is a film you can show those like, no, I think that practical effects have a place and can do amazing things.
Yeah.
I do agree. The music
Definitely.
is spectacular in this. This is one of the few soundtracks I could listen to on its own.
I loved all the scenery and stuff too. The plants would pop up and they would do this, and then you'd see this over here do that, and just even the background look. It was just really neat how the imagination that was put into it for everything, not just the characters but the whole scenery and. Like I said, making all these other little things pop up and this pop up and, different creatures here and there. So I thought that made it also, interesting, and I like the imagination that was put into it.
I have to agree. I like the imagination that went into this. There was so much detail given to the world. Each creature had its own design. I think Jake said a good that they were original. So to me, this film does hold up over time, and I think people got it wrong at that point in time, and they just didn't let it grow on them. So
Another thing, just to throw out there, and Brandon made the point about this one versus like practical versus CG, which is a valid point. I mean, I do love some well done CG, and I love when they're married together well. But
I
good,
agree.
solid practical film can be good too. But like an interesting bit of trivia, according to IMDb, and it may or may not be 100% accurate, but supposedly to this day, the only quote unquote live action non-documentary films to have no visible humans on screen are supposedly this one and the recent Lion King remake. And that one was heavy CG. And while I do believe they did a brilliant job with the lions and with certain other animals with facial expressions and that sort of thing, and while I think that the Gelflings in this movie they could have done so much better with facial expressions there. When it comes to the Skaxis versus, say, Zazu, the Skaxis had much more life, much more vibrancy to them than that freaking bird did.
They put all of their work into the Skaxis as it came to the visual design.
But the point is, like, the idea of just straight up practical effects and puppets can do a pretty darn good job and stand up even to modern CG, even beat it in some cases.
I actually think that was one of the downfalls, if you look at Ghostbusters 2016, is the effects were entirely CG, and whereas they could have utilized more practical effects. Because I think Ghostbusters Afterlife actually combined some practical and CG instead, which I think that really is more of the heart of things. It can make things look more real if you do a good combination of the two.
I think so, and I've made the point several times that that's one of the reasons why I was impressed with the Suicide Squad. Was I felt like that really used a lot of practical effects and blended it well with the CG, whereas even James Gunn's work with Marvel was heavy on the CG, and I didn't get the feel that it had as much practical work on it. So, like, same director working for different studios, you can kind of almost visibly tell the difference at some, to some degree.
Alrighty. I know we somewhat touched on music, but let's talk about music for a moment. Trevor Jones is behind the music there, as far as composing it. But I thought the music went really well with the film. It was unique and I know they had to come up with that mesh and blend of the flute and her singing, which I think that's part of her magical quality, her voice, whereas he was of the musical instrument. And anyone else on the music?
I thought the music was perfect for the movie, and it really went well. I enjoyed it. I loved the way he played and the way she sang, and her just everything was great about it. Really good, really fun, enjoyable.
Okay.
Not sure if I'd listen by itself, but if someone else was, I wouldn't stop, and I would stop and listen.
In the same
I'm
aspect.
intrigued. I'm intrigued that he's the same composer who did Arachnophobia, Last of the Mohicans. He's had some interesting credits over the years, and Labyrinth was also one of them.
A lot of
That's an amazing one.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's never. I don't know if he's as regarded as say John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith, but he definitely does a lot of like high, like not high. I wouldn't say like big, like I don't want to say epic, but I don't know if it's the right word, but like he's definitely.
Yeah. I mean, they were definitely going for an epic feel with Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure of that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And Cliffhanger. He did Cliffhanger also. So yeah, he definitely. I would say, I don't know if he's as regarded as John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith, but he definitely has his filmography. He's definitely done a lot of epic stuff.
Right.
Yeah, actually, what's weird is I was playing Skyrim the other day, and I don't know why, but I thought this soundtrack would be great for the background of that, going adventuring in a fantasy world. It's just such a cool fantasy world.
I could see that.
Well, and I think the sound effects that go behind each of the creatures was pretty profound too. I mean, each of them were distinct. With the I mean, every time I hear that coming from someone,
And that guttural chant that you get from the Mystics is just like real low, and it's pretty good. Sounds fun.
Oh, as a kid, I used to annoy the heck out of the adults because I used to mimic that one and one of the sounds that the other one was making during the dinner scene as a kid. But I was a little kid, so.
Oh, the dinner scene with the wasn't that lovely? Such great table manners.
Yeah, don't watch that scene when you're eating, it's just, yeah.
Right.
One little phrase I thought was a cute thing was when Kira, was saved them, she flew them down, and they land, and he looks at her and he goes, "Oh, well, how come I don't have wings?" And she turns around with just little like smile and goes, "'Cause you're a boy."
Right.
I just thought it was kind of cute,
That was his little Goku moment, because he's been raised basically without his own kind. He doesn't know some of the finer points.
Well, she was too.
He was like, I thought I was the only Gelfling.
I guess maybe either she. I'm wondering if maybe the podlings were. Well, they were clearly more talkative. Let's put it that way.
Right. So
they were clearly more talkative.
Told her more, even though they never taught her to read.
Right.
They taught her other stuff.
Well, they were just like regular folks living their life. Basically, they were the commoners of the story, and the mystics. We kind of, Dave alluded to this before. I think you said you're kind of polar opposites, but really the Mystics and the Skaxis were polar opposites, because basically it comes down to the Skaxis were 110% inwardly focused. It was all about number one.
Almost like a Jekyll and Hyde concept.
They were, like I said, they were 110% focused on their individual selves with no room for anything else. They couldn't even hold grudges against each other. The Chamberlain was welcomed back when he brought a gift because they were so selfish they couldn't even hold a grudge against someone else, because that would involve thinking about someone else. Whereas like the
Interesting way of thinking about it.
mystics were like all 100% big picture. They were only thinking about the grand scheme of things. Probably the only reason they took in a Gelfling was because of the prophecy. You know,
And you notice that they, you notice that they had the Skaxis also embodied the 7 deadly sins, and they tried to tailor some to each one. Like you had gluttony, you had pride, you had God, what was it? What's it? Wrath, of course, being the emperor. So yeah, it was a lot of cool things if you're looking behind the surface. There's a lot to this movie that I think a lot of people might look over.
Yeah, that opening scene, like I didn't really jump in too much when Dave was talking about it before, but like the death of the emperor, really embodied that. They were all, I mean, you might be right, like each of them kind of geared toward one of the sins, but I think they all pretty well embodied greed. I mean, that was definitely, they were all greed. And especially though the two that were vying to become emperor, like he wasn't even dead yet, and they were inching closer to the scepter. But then, like Dave said, you know, with his dying breath, he grabs it back and says, "I am still your emperor."
I did like how when he does it, the first thing he says out of his mouth is "mine."
Yeah.
Well, the mystics remind me of like ancient wise ones. You know, that's what they were.
Right.
Almost like shamans.
They have almost a Native American quality to them.
Right.
The ways, at least how it would be. I feel like there was a lot of that.
Or like Shaolin monks or something like that, you know?
I kind of got both vibes. Like that chant kind of sounds East Asian, but like the way they were presented and I kind of got like it was sort of a little bit of both. Yeah.
Well, let's go into our favorite characters and favorite scenes. Let's start with you, Crow. Did you have a favorite character or favorite scene?
Kira is my favorite character. She's just awesome from the get-go. As soon as you meet her, she's just really cool, fun. She seems pretty smart, with the exception of being able to read. You know, and her affinity with the animals is just fun. You know, Jan is all right, but you know she's definitely a much better character in my opinion. As far as favorite scenes, I have to mention when I first see the castle and the fire on top of it looked really cool. I really enjoyed that, but I loved the fight between the two things that were riding there. I'm not sure what they're called, but and then the beetle-like creatures, you know, that whole fight, and then them jumping off the cliff and then revealing that she has wings and can fly down. That was very enjoyable. That was my favorite scene.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. Favorite character and favorite scene or scenes?
I guess Kira's one of my favorite, but of course I like her little pet.
I hated that dog, by the way.
I liked him.
Oh God,
But,
so fucking annoying. I wanted to kick it.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
lost your foot.
Baby.
Yeah, you
Probably
know,
half your leg.
that set of teeth in there. Yeah, that would have been it. Favorite scene.
Worth it.
I guess when Kira brought those creatures that were like looked like they were on stilts. You know, when she called them, and Jen's realizing how, because he saw her call before, but then she called these other creatures over, and he was just like, he was amazed, and she's telling him, that's, you know, the worry, they're gonna help us get there and everything. I like how that all went down because he is just amazed by her ability, and then the creatures that come, and I liked how the creatures looked, and how they just, helped him out.
Okay. Is that pretty much it then?
Yep. I want the dog.
Heading over to you, Forrest. Favorite character or favorite scene or scenes?
Let's see. Yeah, I have to agree. Kira, definitely. Kira and Fizzgig are my favorite characters. Let's see. Favorite scene. Probably. Probably say favorite scene. Probably when they finally get someone's got, I would say someone's got heating up something in the microwave. No, but I would say like when they finally bring the shard, they finally bring put the shard into the dark crystal, and the castle starts to crumble. That was pretty well done. I thought that was pretty well done. A good set piece.
Okay. Is that
And also the also the like when they do that in what are they called? The mystics appear.
Okay. Very cool. How about you, Jake? Favorite character or favorite scene or scenes?
Well, I'm going to. What's up? Oh. I do definitely like Kira, and I like Agra, although I wish she'd keep her damn eye in her head. Kind of wigs me out when she doesn't do that, but I liked her personality otherwise. But really, when it comes down to it, the star of the movie is Fizzgig. There's no two ways about it. He's the star of the movie. Best character by far. As far as best scenes or favorite scenes, I like the contrast of those deaths at the beginning between this Skaxis emperor and the old wise mystic. I like the contrast in those scenes, and the Skaxis scene itself amused me because of how blatantly, nakedly greedy they were. But I'm not really sure there is a standout. This is the number one favorite moment, but I'm tempted to go with that scene where Jen realizes that Kira can fly. That just amused me, and his reaction, but especially her reaction to it. I just was amused by that.
Alrighty, is that pretty much it for you then?
That'll do.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Favorite character and or favorite scene or scenes?
I can't really have the love for Fizzgig that everybody else does, just because I have a harder time with yappy dogs. It's just too much noise for me. But I remember when I was younger, I was showing it to a friend, and right when they were getting ready to introduce Fizzgig, I said, "Yeah, get closer to the TV. If you get close enough, you can actually see something really cool in there." Right before that introduction, which of course scared the crap out of him because he's right up against TV when Fizzgig started yowling or started barking really loudly. But as far as favorite characters, Chamberlain, always found the character cool as a kid, and even today I found the character fascinating. And then the dinner scene is my favorite scene, especially with the part where Agra is brought in, and it's kind of funny. You've got this diminutive character with these Skaxis that are clearly at the advantage, and she's got them all on their back feet, just kind of, and some of them even cowering before her as she's just like laying into them.
That was one of the reasons I liked her, was because she just didn't take shit from anyone.
So I love that. I thought that was great. Probably my favorite scene.
The funny part about the Chamberlain is the first time I watched this, the guy I was going out with at the time is the one that showed me this movie, and he could sound just like him. And he loved it. And right after we'd watch it, he'd walk around the house doing it all the time.
Okay.
As far as favorite characters go, it's a toss-up for me between Fizzgig, Agra, and Chamberlain for me, because those creatures fascinate me. I always considered Agra as like something that comes from like Greek mythology, like one of the people who spins the the lifelines of people.
The Fates?
Yeah, the Fates. But only one of them.
I was thinking more like Cassandra.
As far as favorite scenes go, I do have a liking of the two of them, Jen and Kira, in the boat or canoe or whatever the heck it is, and they're singing and playing the music. I just think that's such harmony. And I guess one of my other favorite scenes is probably when the Dark Crystal actually gets put back together, and for some reason the ending with the angels kind of fascinates me. So, and every time I hear the I just think it's weird. But did anyone else have anything else to add? Oh, we got one more here.
We are unholy late today. Sorry.
Well, why don't you go into your first impressions?
Well, the first time I saw this movie was when I watched it the first time, way back when we did this episode. And I was pretty impressed with it. I mean, it's a pretty awesome story. And there's a lot of moments where you look at the screen and are like, wow, those are puppets? Really? Like, it's so impressive, just from a technical sense and both in like a fantasy world building sense. Like, you get the feeling that there's a lot going on here and a lot of thought was put into it. And revisiting it today, even though I had to do so a little bit late, which is why I'm late. Sorry, everybody. It's still very impressive. So my first impressions of this, I guess you could just summarize as highly positive.
Okay.
And it still holds up after multiple viewings.
Well, and we're going through all the favorite scenes and favorite characters before you jumped on. So why don't you go ahead and tell us your favorite scene and or scenes and favorite character?
I think my favorite scene is probably the big reveal at the end of like what we've been what we've really been seeing, like what the story's about, with the advanced species splitting into like good and evil halves because of the breaking of the crystal. It's been hinted at like all throughout the movie, like when a Skaxis dies, one of the mystics dies. But it's not so it's something you can piece together on your own, but it's not really clear until that explanation, and suddenly it's like, oh, that's why. So I think I like that scene the most for fleshing out the world building of this place. And as for character, it's hard to pick a character. Augur seems to have the most going on, like in terms of exposition and adding to that world building. So I think I'd probably go with her. But the Chamberlain is also a pretty fun character too, because like he gets booted from the Skaxis, and his immediate thought is to, well, try to get back into favor by tricking our heroes, and it doesn't work, of course, but you have to kind of respect that level of shameless scheming, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
From a character development point of view, it's like, oh, this guy's just a jerk. Got it.
Did you have anything to say about production and or music?
It just all looks so good. Like it's hard to believe these are puppets. Like Jim Henson's goal was to push what he could do with puppets, and I think he succeeded. I mean, maybe it wasn't commercially successful in the way that it frankly deserved to be, but it's still a pretty spectacular fantasy story and fantasy world that they created. I mean, there's nothing I can find, like nothing looks really phony to me. Like there's a scene somewhat early on where they're just showing like the biology of this like little swampland area, and there are so many weird creatures and weird plants, and it all plays as believable to me.
Well, the way I described it at the time is like if you took the sea and like you drained it of all the water and like some of it looked like sea enemy or whatnot, you know.
There were definitely a few creatures like that, yeah.
Like,
and the music is great too, but I don't have a whole lot to comment on with the music other than it does its job very well. It's maybe not super memorable like as a theme, but it's more than enough. It's really good. That's the best way to phrase it, but
thanks for joining us anyways. So
yeah. Sorry I got delayed so much. I feel a little bad.
But
Dave was also the stern taskmaster tonight, kept everything moving.
I was so sure we'd still be on for like another hour. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm really late, but oh.
Well, I think at this point in time, unless anyone else has anything else to say on the film, we'll start doing our outros. Let's begin with you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we go on about physical media in all of its forms, and we've got an upcoming discussion. Was it next week, I guess, on the movie Premiere? So looking forward to that. We've got also a really big pickup coming up next week, but we're also working really hard on the Versus Awards, and I know Brandon will have some more to say on that, but definitely that's something to tune in for, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun. Several of the people, well, some of the people here participated in presenting, and I think most of them participated generally. It was good times, and I generally am very busy with this, that, or the other, or do have a full-time job as well as a nursery I co-founded that we've got a really big market coming up Saturday that we're excited about, Native Plant Nursery, and every now and then get a little project that I'll throw something for on Kickstarter. I know there's a documentary that's just about to come out, or that I threw a little bit in on, and Yeah, I guess that'll do for now. I just when I can find time, I do try to make time to do this every week, to hang out with these fine folks for a couple hours and look at whatever the movie of the week is. And it was fun giving this a revisit. I guess we'll have to do some more revisits somewhere down the road. Maybe catch one of the ones I missed the first time.
Definitely. Heading over to you, Forrest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, my name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and occasional actor based in Long Island, New York. I've always got something going on in the pipeline. I've got actually my first feature film as an actor, Amityville Thanksgiving, is coming out in November. Just as an example, you can also find me on a show called Under the Radar, based here in New York, where we review newer movies and TV shows, and on a podcast called Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne, where we discuss 80s and 90s pop culture. Yeah, and like I said, I've always got something going on. Actually, I just filmed a short a monster movie just last week. I just acted in a monster movie last week from Dylan Moore, from my fellow trauma cohort, Dylan Mars Greenberg.
Very cool. Heading over to you, Kroll. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kroll, aka Ron. I enjoy watching TV, movies, and playing video games. I come on this podcast on Sunday with Dave, Delusions of Grandeur, and popping on other people's podcasts here and there, anime, all kinds of different things. So, blink and you'll see me there, all around. But I don't have my own YouTube channel, but I'm around everyone else's. So.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm David's fiance, and I love going on this site and another one and talking about movies and listening to everybody else's opinions and likes and dislikes and everything. And it makes it a lot of fun. And I collect myself. And now summer's drawing to a close. I won't be able to go play with my car anymore, but other than that, that's it.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I collect horror movie stuff here in Milwaukee. I haven't had the ability to go out and get anything for a while, but there's a lot of stuff I got before the summer that I haven't shot yet. So we're working on getting those videos uploaded. And, well, okay, I got to make them first, but we're working on it. We're working on it. So you can find me on my YouTube channel at The Crypt of Horrors, and also my Instagram, The Crypt of Horrors. And you can interact with me on Twitter, where I am Cryptaxis, DER Cryptaxis. I wanted Cryptaxis, but some idiot has that, so yeah. But yeah, follow me, and hopefully we'll have some fun together pretty soon.
Very cool. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. We like physical media. We've had a little bit of a break this week, though I have a preview review, a very short first impression review of Horror Tales 666 Part 3 coming out tomorrow, which will be a, like I say short, I mean short, because I'm trying not to do spoilers. But I was really happy to have checked that out and seen a preview of it. Looking forward to its release in October. We are working on the Versus Awards, which is what primarily is the focus. So that's why we've been kind of lower on the output. And I'm going to be editing a lot. I've gotten 95% of the footage. The last 5% should be filmed probably this week. And then it should premiere at probably, I think, around 9 o'clock Saturday was the time last year. I mean, not Saturday, 9 o'clock on the 30th, which would be a Friday. I know I'll be there in the comments as we do the premiere. I don't know if anybody else will, but hopefully we can all have fun watching it together. I also am on another channel called Schlockaholics. It's a discussion channel with myself, Mo, and Cody Tudor, who is
And
acting
I've
a few things.
joined in on a couple of episodes too.
I joined in on one.
Yep, the Scream one.
And it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, there's a lot of extra discussions, and then there's a couple of main movie discussions, which the movies that we had officially discussed as a part of the thing, I think we're getting ready to discuss the Shackled Demon Project, though I'm not sure when that will happen. We've got a set time, but we'll hopefully have it when we did. But you should check out our last one, our other ones that we had, at least the ones that I know we've done, which are Scalps, which is the most recent one. Very fun film. Axe Grinder, and something to shake it up a little bit from the horror. Games Master, what have you done? As we try to bring forward a lot of the schlock that the world has thrown out.
Alrighty. And my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey that we've had. We've talked about a lot of films over time. And, we're nearing some of the end of our celebrating being on the air for 5 years now. But we've been having fun revisiting some of the films that we've visited once before, because we just enjoy talking about these films. And I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we also podcast on Sundays. In fact, we had an interesting discussion on the Alien Dead this last Sunday. And we'll be following it up with a discussion on an Elvis film that is chosen by Tammy, which we'll be dedicating to her mother, who her birthday would have been last Thursday. So the film title is called Kid Galahad. So we're gonna be having some fun rocking out with Elvis there. And also, Kroll and I went on and shared some of our pickups this last Saturday, and we're also planning another pickup video this coming Saturday. So be there for that. So some very cool stuff coming up. Brandon, do we have another film next week that we're discussing?
Actually, what I'll do is hand it over to Forrest, because it's your birthday next week, or, well, birthday presentation. I don't know about day, but you know.
Yeah, actually, yeah, my birthday is actually on Sunday. But next week I'll be leading the discussion on two of my top 10 movies. National Lampoon. I believe we're doing this on. I think we're doing this on your channel, right, Dave? National Lampoon's Animal House.
Yep.
And then one of my top 5 movies, favorite comedy, one of my favorite comedies, actually probably my favorite comedy. And then on Inside Movies Galore, we will be discussing my favorite Batman movie as well as my favorite animated movie, because I've been collecting comic books for 30 years, and Batman is my favorite superhero. We will be discussing Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Very cool.
It would be my favorite film too if you did the Batusi at the end.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening along with us, if you have. And hopefully you'll be back with us on our various channels that we'll be having some discussions on. And like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully we'll have some more exciting stuff down the road for you. So everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Night, John boy.